Hey, everybody. Um, this morning, well, I keep saying this morning because when I record these, it's morning, but it might not be morning for you. Good, whatever part of the day it is. I want to take a little bit of time to help you learn to learn better. And I hope you also take these ideas and teach them to your students um, so that they can also learn to learn better. Um, so we're about to do a Kahoot. And here's the really important thing. As each question comes up, you must vote for the answer you think is right. And obviously you're not in the Kahoot. So what you're going to do is put a thumbs up for true and a thumbs down for false. Almost all of these are true, false. You got to commit to an answer. That's really going to ramp up how well you remember this information. All right, let's let the game begin. Also, remember that because this is in Perusall, you should be clicking the comment button and adding lots of comments. You can see everyone else's comments by clicking at the on the little yellow dots down at the bottom. All right. And we really are going to start to play. I'm going to try this play solo. Okay, I'm going to put in my name. Let's see what happens. It is better to get down exactly what the professor says, the teacher says, than to put it in your own words. I'm going to go with a transfer. Okay, so step one, I'm going to turn the volume down a little bit. And step two, let's talk for a moment about why this is false. You can almost take notes on what someone is saying without really engaging your brain at all. It's remarkable how your hand can just kind of write the words and no real thinking is happening. But when you have to put something into your own words, that's when your brain is really starting to process it. I like to think of the process of getting from a piece of new information to having that stick over a long period of time. And I would say by writing something in your own words, it's getting you about 20% of the way there. It's not all you need, but it's really helpful. All right, get ready to answer the next question. Thumb up or thumb down. Got to commit. I'm going to give you about 5 seconds. I don't know how imaginary person Robin is ahead of me. The most effective study strategies are the ones you have found are most comfortable for you. All right, I hope you've given your answer. Okay, this is probably my favorite question in this whole Kahoot. And that's because I taught this idea for a long time. We all believed this idea, and then new research came along that proved it to be false. Weirdly, strategies that are kind of uncomfortable tend to work better. And it's a lot like if you're running every day and trying to get better at running, if every day you just run for a few minutes really lightly, um, you know, that's not going to add up to much. But if you um, push yourself and make yourself a little uncomfortable each time you run, then you're going to find that you actually grow. And the same is true for your brain. It needs to be pushed and stretched and struggle in order for it to grow. Well, at least I'm beating all the pretend people now. All right, so if you are struggling as you study, you are probably doing something right. So hopefully, from what I just told you, you got that one correct. Yes, there you should feel some sense of struggle. It should feel like work. Often it's really enjoyable work, but it should be a little bit tough. Now, there's obviously a point that's too far, and it's you're just getting frustrated. But basically, um, if you're struggling some as you study, you're probably doing something right, and more importantly, you're probably learning more than if you weren't struggling. When you're not struggling, you're often just kind of reviewing. All right, let's try another. Rereading your notes 2 to 3 times the night before a test is better than if you only reread once. Hmm. So that's false. And in research, what they would do is like take a class and say, this third of you, you are going to reread once. This third, you're going to reread twice. This third, you're going to reread 3 times. No difference. Yeah, no difference at all. And yet, that is one of the most popular study methods in the United States at all levels. But rereading a text or notes once is an excellent study strategy. Excellent is the problematic word here. It's okay, especially if you haven't looked at the material in a long time, it's a good idea. But there are lots of strategies that are much better. So excellent, not so much, but not terrible. Does trying to solve a problem before you've been taught how to solve it help you learn more or reinforce possible mistakes? Yes, it actually helps you learn more, which I think is just kind of a really exciting thing. We should be having students do a lot more of this, where they try to solve a problem or they make guesses, and that's why I'm always giving, well, not always, but a lot of the time I'm giving you pre-questions, because pre-questions are an example of trying to solve a problem before you've really learned the information. You're trying to answer a question. Also, if you even have to make guesses or predict things, that all increases learning substantially. If you aren't doing that in your class, you are losing out on a good big chunk of learning that could be happening. And it doesn't take that long. Your intelligence is something you can change. This is true. This is something, it's an idea that really just kind of came to prominence in the last couple of decades. There was a time when there was a belief that the brain was pretty much formed at a fairly early age. And now we know that that is absolutely not true at all. um, and that you can indeed change your intelligence. It requires generally 2 things: hard work, you just can't get around putting in the work, and then using quality strategies, because you can work as hard as you want, but if you're using a crap strategy, like just rereading and rereading and rereading, you're not going to see that growth in knowledge. A great way to change your intelligence is to learn more about learning, which you're doing at this very moment. The more often you're exposed to something, the better you will remember the details. Yeah, I know this one sounded true, but it's actually false. And I'm not going to say anything about it until after the next question, because these two go together. I want to warn you about what you're about to see. You're about to see, so that you can like quickly look. You're about to see 3 rows of pennies, but they all look different. And you need to pick which line the correct penny is in. Are you ready? I'm going to give you a little more time than I usually do. I'm going to give you 10 seconds. Okay, is the correct one in row 1, 2, or 3? Okay, so I'm going to tell you right now, it's A. Yeah, the very first one. Oops, I clicked too soon. I'll come back. Would you be better off if your professor provides 3 short quizzes over the material or 3 short reviews of the material? I thought it'd be fun to hit the wrong one once. Okay, so let me go back first to the pennies because I accidentally went by too fast. The question was, is being exposed to something more often lead to more learning? And it doesn't necessarily. You have been exposed to a penny probably thousands of times in your life. And yet when I showed you all those pennies, you were probably like, they all kind of look right. Pure exposure doesn't do much at all. And a whole lot of what we do in classes is what I would call pure exposure. I mean, you're just kind of up at the board talking. The students aren't actively, deeply thinking. They're just kind of gazing at you and maybe jotting some things down. And that ends up being really more just exposure. To really learn, you have to process. The brain has to be working hard. Now let's come to this question. Why would 3 short reviews be better? I mean, why would 3 short quizzes be better than 3 short reviews? Well, because a review is generally the teacher standing at the front of the room, like saying, okay, now remember how we did this and this was like that. And one of 2 things is happening. Either your students are just like gazing at you and barely taking in what's happening, just kind of looking, in which case they're just getting exposure, like with the pennies, they're not really processing anything. Or if they are paying attention, they're likely thinking this thought: yes, the teacher note, that's right, that's right. That is how you do that problem. That is the right answer to that question. That is when that event happened. And you start to get the feeling that because you understand what's happening, that you actually know it. But then the quiz comes or the test comes and you're like, I thought I knew that, but I got nothing. Whereas in quizzes, there's no fooling yourself. Like, you're asked questions, you immediately, hopefully, know if you got it right or wrong, and you know if you're getting it or if you're not getting it. And that's an incredibly important thing, because here's one of the most important ideas I'm trying to present to you today, and that is that our brains trick us into thinking we know more than we do. And one of the only ways to get beyond that is to practice retrieval, which basically means quiz yourself. Either create your own quizzes if you have to, get your teacher to quiz for you. You should be quizzing your students. The quizzes don't have to count. The quizzes in my classes don't count. But when you do that quiz, like at the end of a reading, you, I hope, immediately realize either, heck yeah, I read the hell out of that article, or I am not answering these as easily as I thought I would. Yeah. The test is to toss a beanbag into a bucket from 3 feet away. Which group does better? Group A, who practices throwing beanbags from 3 feet away, or Group B, who practices at 2 feet and 4 feet, but never at 3? So this, I think, is going to be a big surprise to a lot of people. And especially if you are a coach and you're having students, practice skills that aren't maybe that different from this. When you practice from 3 feet away, you get a sort of muscle memory, which is helpful. But when you're practicing at 2 feet and 4 feet, your brain is learning to compensate and kind of, look at the context, figure things out. Like all this stuff is building in your brain as opposed to just kind of a simple motor memory. And so, for example, if you were teaching students to free throw in basketball, sometimes you can have them at the free throw line, but just as often you should have them a step or two away from the free throw line. Yeah, truth. Think about for a minute about how this would apply to what the skills you teach. Rehearsing skills in your head helps you improve on them in real life. That's true, but we rarely encourage students to do this. But imagine like that you're going to do a presentation and you in your car on the way to the presentation are practicing the presentation in your head. That helps. That helps a lot. Or if you're going to be doing a lab later and you're thinking through the steps to take to do the lab, that helps. So yes, this is absolutely true. But the more important thing is that we should let students know this is true and help them practice doing it. For straight up memorization of simple facts, vocabulary, etc., nothing beats flashcards. And it's pretty true. There was a time when I used to be like, flashcards, so old fashioned. There's so many other ways you could be doing this. But it turns out that they are pretty perfect. And here's why. Um, First of all, they don't allow you to have that illusion of knowing when you don't actually know, because it's like taking a quiz, right? You're looking at that card and you guess, and then the nice thing is you flip it over, you immediately know if you're right or wrong. That's super helpful. And then you can make piles. So here are ones that I'm consistently getting right. I do not need to be spending as much time on those. Here's one that I'm mostly getting right. Here's the ones I'm still really struggling with. They're yes, are they old-fashioned? Yes. Are they good for a reason? Yeah, they really are. And of course you could do online if you want to be more, fashionable, I guess. You could use Quizlet or something. If you're practicing something, it is best to practice different skills separately. Like instead of just long division, long division, long division, mixing in some other pieces. Yeah, it's really important to learn to mix them up. I'm going to use a basketball example again. Instead of having students just do layup, 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 which doesn't happen in real life, you might have them like you do a layup and then you run over here and you shoot a free throw and then you run out here and you try for a 3-pointer. Because in real life, things are mixed up. You don't often do just same, 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 same. A tiny bit of that just right at the beginning, like if you were learning long division for the first time, doing a number of them in a row would be a good thing. But pretty quickly, it's better if you mixed in a little bit of, a multiplication student question here, or, something that would be a little bit of a review. So one of the best ways I think to do this is just to be constantly working in things that you learned earlier in the semester as a way to mix it up and review at the same time. You're getting two great things for the price of one. Two more. If what you were reading is a little out of focus, you will remember the content better. That's weird. There's some studies that suggest this could be true. But basically, when something's a little out of focus, you have to concentrate more, right, to make it out. And by concentrating more, you're bringing in what would be called, that struggle, that it's desirable difficulty that's going to help you remember it better. But there are lots of ways you could add this little bit of difficulty. For example, if you're reading a hard copy book, you can turn it upside down and read upside down, which is possible to do, but it requires more concentration. Anything that just adds that little bit of need to concentrate harder is going to be a good thing, because otherwise, you know how sometimes, like when you read, you've read a whole page and then you realize, oh, I don't remember anything I just read. Yeah, so this idea has to do with that. That's one of the reasons I love Perusall, is that the added difficulty of having to think about what you're going to highlight and then annotate and looking at other people's things keeps you much more engaged in the reading than if you were just sitting at home in bed staring at a hard copy book. And our last question: if you have social media alerts turned on while you study, that can help too. Okay, so here's the thing. An added layer of difficulty can be helpful. We just looked at that. But the added level of difficulty has to pull you deeper into what you're studying. And, like having the words be a little unfocused would pull you deeper. Turning the book upside down pulls you deeper. Social media alerts pull you away, pull your attention away. And there are a lot of studies that have looked at, like, how long does it take to get that focus back? And you would be stunned. It is often a lot longer than you think. And if you have multiple alerts going off or different things calling your attention, it can easily double or triple how long you need to do that particular assignment. Yeah. And I would say it's one of my superpowers is that I'm very good about creating situations where there is nothing to pull my focus away, and there are things to pull my focus in. And I can easily do double the amount of work in the same amount of time by ensuring that I get that focus. Let's see if I won. Okay, false people. Good for you, but I won. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this. And the most important thing at this point is to take a moment and write some notes down about how you want to apply what you learned here to your own learning, and how you want to help your students learn these tips and tricks so that they learn better. Nice seeing you. Head on to the next part of your assignment module.